There is a concept in the real estate trading space known as inspect what you expect. And this is critical when we're bringing on team members. They need to know what your expectations of them are and vice versa. What do they expect to get from their affiliation with the team? And what do you expect as team leader out of them in terms of production, all kind of things like dress code? Do you have a standard by which you want them keeping their cars, tidy? What are the standards? So inspect what you expect. And the second principle would be clear as kind. So making it crystal clear what you expect from them in terms of scheduling, in terms of what dollar productive activities they're focused on, in terms of what they wear, how they show homes, what they say on a listing presentation. All these systems have to be developed. And what I'm going to tell you about this morning is a story from my team where all those systems are already developed and we're still having issues with expectations. It's one of those things where, I think that probably the biggest thing team leaders need to get comfortable with is, in addition to holding people accountable, that's a big thing. Like, yes, we can hire our friends. Yes, we can be in business with our friends. And lots of times, especially when team leaders are starting out, they're recruiting people they know. And a lot of times it's people they know well. And that creates a difficulty with accountability. And a lot of times, because you don't want to ruin the friendship. But one of the biggest value proposition, if not the biggest value proposition of teams, is accountability. So we had an agent who just exited our team, and we did not fire her. She fired herself. But this was after roughly about 8 months of her being on our team. So we tell them, or we train our team members on what to say, how many times to say it, and we give them plenty of people to say all those things, all those right things enough times too. We give them the script. We go through the completely train them on the anatomy of a phone call, like how to handle objections, how many conversations they need to be focused on a day, how many hours it's probably going to take per day to reach that number of conversations. I mean, the whole 9 yards. And then we do weekly group coaching calls. And then I offer my time up to them as needed for one-on-one coaching throughout the week, whatever they need. Okay. So I was on at least 2 one-on-ones with this agent. Gosh knows how many in-person coaching sessions she had with our general manager and our sales manager, because we have a GM that runs things day to day. And then our model is such that we have sales managers that run the local markets that our teams are in. Okay, so what did we find out? And here's the question that we need to ask ourselves from a leadership standpoint is, why didn't we heed our own advice? Why didn't we do a better job of inspecting what we expect? For example, I was on a coaching call with this agent, one of our private one-on-ones, and we were going through the introductory phone script for establishing a internet lead generation call, that first attempt to get, or first several attempts really, to get an internet lead on the phone. What exactly do you say? What do you say, and how do you say it to avoid a hang up or a quick not interested and hang up? So sometimes it's just a click. Sometimes it's like, oh, once they hear realtor or real estate, like, oh, telemarketer, and the hang up. So how do you avoid that? So our script is I think it's pretty simple. So let's go through it. So it's, hey, this is Jason Will with the Jason Will Real Estate Team. Thank you so much for taking my call this morning or this afternoon, depending on what time your prospecting time block is. So, hey, this is Jason Will, the Jason Will Real Estate Team. Thank you so much for taking my call. Hey, the purpose of my call today was to update my files to see if you're still in the market to buy a home or if you've already purchased a property. Now, those two were embedded commands and do some research on the science of this stuff. It's out there and it is irrefutable. What I found on this coaching call is that this agent was saying, this is XYZ agent with the Jason real estate team. How are you doing today? And then she would just stop. She would stop right there. She wouldn't get that whole long, or I don't think it's too long, but she wouldn't get that whole script out of her mouth before she would stop. And when we stop, when we get that full script out, we're training our agents to not say a peep. Don't say a word until the other person on the end of the phone says something first, no matter how long that takes. So we identified on that coaching call an error she was making. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually good news. Now, it's not great news that you've been not following the training all these weeks and months. But the good news is we have identified the problem. And so we can plug this hole in the boat and hopefully get you on the road to not just consistent transactions, but multiple transactions every single month. Nothing happened. There was no progress made. This agent was on our team for roughly 8 to 10 months. I'm not sure exactly how long, but she only closed one transaction from her sphere of influence. She got a listing early on, and then it was crickets throughout the entire rest of her time with our team. So she, as I mentioned, she fired herself. And when that happens, we transfer the leads. We typically will transfer them to multiple agents, kind of fan them out in an equal number. But in this case, our GM got in her database prior to and started checking it out and realized that she had committed a fatal flaw in this lead conversion process, which is doing it a very fear-based, more of a fear-based and passive method than actually picking up the phone and calling. So she was sending emails, and they weren't valuable emails either. They were just check-in emails. If you want to send a consumer, especially an internet-generated lead, a valuable email, then you would do research on their behalf. You know, one of the things that's cool about, the CRM technology that's out these days is that we can see all the movements these people are making on our websites. We can see how many times they're looking at a property, what properties they're looking at. We can identify through those search patterns, their favorite geographical areas of our real estate marketplace. So it is a very, hyper local oversight over the lead activity that's happening on the back end of our websites in the data that's collected by the CRM. So it's not good, right? She was never going to turn the corner by just passively emailing people. So she let fear get the best of her and ended up probably going to a smaller brokerage or a brokerage that, where she could just kind of blend in and not have to be subject to accountability and standards and all those different things. So that is what I wanted to communicate today, is how important it is to pick up the phone and prospect on a consistent basis. If, the whole purpose of content and becoming a consistent content creator and a consistent, distributor of content across a broad number of, social media platforms and channels is to generate free organic leads. So whether we're paying for these leads or we're generating them for free, on our team, we do a combination of both because we have so many team members. We have so many team member databases to feed. But that is the key element. I mean, we're not going to email our way to a converted lead in most cases. Now, are there caveats? Can we text a lead and have them text us right back? Sure. But what my general manager did was got in this, agent's database and started calling and found a lady that was not just ready to look at property, she was ready to write a contract on a property. Now, it was a small transaction, $220,000, but it just goes to show you, This agent has nobody to blame but herself for why she didn't succeed in an environment that produces some of the most top producing real estate agents in the entire state of Alabama. Okay. So if we're going to build a team, now the first thing I'll say about that is there, in my opinion, there's no more worthwhile pursuit in this industry than to build a team. And that comes from the team leader perspective and also the team member perspective. So I've been both. I've been on teams before, multiple teams before I started my team. And so I understand the benefits of both sides.